Everybody, how's it going? This is Eden Mabon of Light Cycle Astrology. Welcome back to the channel, friends. Today we are taking a look at Venus's upcoming adherence or conjunction to the planet Saturn in Aquarius. Now, this is happening over the weekend. It's about a 4-day transit. So Venus moves into the 3-degree range of influence around 2 a.m. Eastern time on Friday, January the 20th. So with Friday, we start to see the effects of this. Interestingly enough, this is 2 hours before the sun also ingresses into the sign of Aquarius. The transit perfects by 5 p.m. Eastern time on Monday, and then moves out of that 3-degree range of adherence by around 10 a.m. on Wednesday. So let's go ahead and pull up the real-time clock here and get a look at this transit. So you can see by Friday, the sun moves in just around the time that Venus and Saturn begin to get within 3 degrees of each other. So this is the beginning of the adherence, but it's not to say that you wouldn't feel any effect before this, maybe a day, maybe even 2 days before. It's just to say that that 3-degree range or orb is going to be the most potent part of the transit. Now, I'm thinking that when we get to the new moon that happens on Saturday, that's where we're going to see a pretty powerful indicator of this adherence as well, because now we have this stellium in Aquarius, and the moon is going to then sweep by Venus and Saturn right as Venus is perfecting to Saturn. And then the moon moves out, but by around Wednesday or so, we see that Venus now gains about 3-degree range of separation to Saturn, which is probably when the feeling begins to diminish pretty significantly. But because this is all taking place right at the very moment of the new moon in Aquarius, this is a really big indicator, not just of this transit, which we're going to talk about today, but this is really coloring the whole lunation cycle ahead because it's happening in the same sign as the moon sweeps by. Another really interesting thing to me is that it's as if Saturn is really receiving a big dose of feminine energy. And this is a masculine or daytime sign in ancient astrology. It's one of Saturn's 2 signs. Saturn's other sign is Capricorn, which is his or her nighttime or female sign. But in Aquarius, we are talking about a daytime yang or masculine kind of extroverted expression that Saturn is in when he's in this mode. But it's as if he's getting visited by a lot of female energy. I mean, we have Venus making this contact, which is definitely feminine. And then we have the moon coming by, which is also feminine. So this is a really interesting aspect that, or transit rather, that we're going to see probably the most potent moments happening Saturday, Sunday, maybe a little bit on Monday as well. Okay, so I have 10 themes to watch for that is going to include not only the adherence between Venus and Saturn, but also this adherence is really interweaving itself into the whole lunation cycle ahead because the new moon is taking place in the same sign at the same time here. My 10 themes to watch for. Theme number 1, a new ring on the tree for social maturity is starting. This is sort of like that feeling when you're moving from middle school into high school. It's as if all of a sudden you get a new wrinkle on your social belt. So instead of the aging process happening to your appearance, maybe this also takes place in something socially. And that's because the temples of Saturn, Aquarius, and Capricorn are opposite to the temples of the lights. And the sun is much more of a central authority, things that hold central oneness or unity, a gravitas that makes things about the self or the one or the God. But Aquarius being opposite to that, we do see a place that is really concerned a lot of times with humanity writ large or social situations on like a societal kind of level. So there could be this Venus speaking to a social situation because she is the energy that represents the grace and harmony among people, but also Saturn does have a very social role to play here as well. Something like that energy is taking place where you might find yourself maybe going through a maturation process with things involving social dynamics or groups. Saturn is the god of populism and the in-group and the out-group and everything in between. So I could see definitely something around social situations or dynamics going through a maturation process that brings in some kind of new moon connotation with it, that's beginning something new. Okay, theme number 2 is moving into harmony or grace and a stoic outlook for the chop wood, carry water grind. The Buddha said that, I hope I get this right, but he said, somebody asked him a question, well, Master, what do you do after you gain enlightenment? And the Buddha said, chop wood, carry water, which is exactly what you do before you gain enlightenment. So that daily grind where we can maybe find a moment of harmony that moves into a combination of something like a stoic outlook where you just go, it's difficult or it's hard, but it has to be done. And not only are we going to do it and keep working and trudging ahead in a difficult way, even if we must, but let's do it with a sense of harmony or grace at the same time. So that's theme number 2. Theme number 3 is going to be creative work becoming cemented through the advertising or sharing of concepts with others. So this one is maybe a project you've been working on creatively that is already a little bit established. It's already maybe have gotten going in the last month or 2 or whatever. But this is at this time, it moves into this moment that is represented by Aquarius having that stabilizing or solid or fixing kind of energy and making that adherence to Saturn. I could see something like you also pulling in that communicative energy that Aquarius has, that airy kind of quality where you're advertising something you've been doing or sharing with others. And somehow that cements it. It gives it a Saturnine structure, sort of cements it into place, makes it more solid, levels you up. It becomes more of a fixture instead of something that you're just starting for a little while now. So that is theme number 3. Theme number 4, the beginning of new commitments in a relationship. I would say that's pretty likely, things like engagements, proposals, maybe sharing resources, etc. Now, this one, it's probably a very common one that people would think of, but you could also think of sometimes when you have Venus-Saturn contacts, you might say, well, Eden, what about, Saturn is a planet that sometimes has to do with breakups or suffering or separations or being like outsider or outcast. So why wouldn't you say a delineation like, maybe your relationship will suffer a breakup, The reason why I'm going with more of a positive outcome with this is because Saturn is greatly dignified in his own temple of Aquarius. So he's already in a better mood. He's going to give Venus, the sun, and the moon constructive Saturn types of things to work with, rather than the more like typical suffering, separations, limitations, oppression, that kind of thing, because Saturn is like in a better mood. So this is more of a constructive thing I see happening where you're leaning more towards the Saturnine quality that says, long-term commitment. So that is theme number 4 that I am seeing. Theme number 5 is meeting someone new that is attractive to you because of their eccentricity. If you've ever known any Aquariuses out there, and to all my Aquarius watchers, you'll know this one to be true, that Aquarius is oftentimes, I feel like more so because the sign of Aquarius is airy in element. I feel like Aquarius really has a lot of eccentricity to it, this eccentric outside of the box. Now, today, we usually in modern astrology think of Uranus as the god or the planet that represents that kind of eccentricity or uniqueness or whatever. But in the ancient world, they didn't know about Uranus yet. It was not discovered. So Saturn was being the last planet on the edge of the solar system that they could see, was the repository of all of those modern day Uranian things that we usually have. So you have the creative genius was Saturn. You have the contemplative was Saturn. So this is an airy sign. So we see Saturn in an airy elemental modality here. And so that's why I'm thinking, combining with Venus, maybe you meet somebody now, but it's as if the attraction is forming because of their quirkiness or uniqueness or interesting ideas or whatnot. Okay, theme number 6 is taking on new responsibilities that help out the ones you love, but also may potentially give you less time with them. This maybe is a little bit of that Saturnine separation kind of a thing where you're taking on new responsibilities, but that is going to mean that there is a bit of a separation simultaneously with Venus as well as an adherence with Venus, right? So Saturn does the hard work. Saturn goes out into the world and does that hard work and is doing it for Venus, but then simultaneously suffers maybe a separation from Venus. But again, this is in a positive way because Saturn is in a good mood in his own temple here. So these are more constructive things, I think. So you're doing something that is constructive for the relationship, but it might mean that you just don't have enough time in the relationship as things progress forward. So that could be another theme. Theme number 7 is having and finding pleasure in heightened imagination or radiant thoughts that have balance between light and dark. Yeah, so the new moon coming through, you have the quintessential masculine sun, the quintessential feminine moon, or, not in terms of sex or gender, but just in terms of yin and yang or light and dark. And you also have this taking place in a sign that is a combination of the overarching winter season of darkness, but as light is growing steadily day by day in a fixed or solid modality. So I could see something just in general with the heightened genius imagination of Saturn. Saturn sits on the numinous beyond at the edge of the prefaces of the visible solar system and looks out to eternity, right? He's the last planet in the solar system in the ancient world, looking out to the eternal beyond. So Saturn has this genius, very eternal outlook. We could see a greatened or heightened sense of imagination that looks to, the great beyond. In combination with the sun moving into Aquarius, getting those radiant thoughts coming in and mingling with the energies of Saturn now, and having something to do with light and dark. Okay, theme number 8, the start of a campaign that is popular with men and women, having an air of authority or charm. So I'm pulling in the new moon symbolism here, the combination of the sun and the moon, and that popularity or populism theme that we also see in Aquarius a lot of times with Saturn there. And then there's some kind of charm, but you see the authority of the weight of the sun now ingressing into the sign of Aquarius. You see Venus in there, and you kind of combine those archetypes. You might see that there is something new that's beginning. I'm just using the word campaign, but I just mean anything new that you're starting that somehow has a popular resonance with everybody, men and women. And it somehow brings in those themes of the sun, of authority, kind of a weightiness to it, especially with Saturn being kind of heavy as well. And then the Venusian charm to pull it off or speak about it or talk about it or share ideas or get it out there in the world. So that's theme number 8, the start of a campaign that is popular with everybody, having that authority or charm. Theme number 9, working hard to make something beautiful. That one, I think, is very likely, and it kind of goes along with theme number 10 here, working together in harmony. So those two are just kind of us turning the jewel just a little bit and almost getting the same thing here, but working hard to make something beautiful. I'll give you an example of this. I'm having an excavator come over to begin a new house pad somewhere on the property here, and we've been waiting a long time, but we've needed this nice, sunny, beautiful weather to dry out the ground for the work to begin. So just as this is happening, I've got an earth-moving machine, right, Saturn, coming in. And what is he doing? He's digging a pad because the weather is beautiful, Venus, and the pad is for a home, the new moon. So a new project that's getting going. That's very interesting. But there is something that is pleasurable about it because it's happening within beautiful weather. It's going to be a very beautiful home once it's built. And so there's this joy or pleasure that is definitely coming along with finally being able to start this project for me and my family. So that is kind of an example of that, but also working together in harmony. So over the last couple of days, my wife is expecting a baby in about under 3 months now. We're in our last trimester. And so we're starting to get things ready for the house. And we've been doing all kinds of projects. And one of them is we've been building this massive like staircase and bed that it's kind of like a lofted bed to provide a little more room in the room where the bed is. And she told me one day, I think like a couple days into the project, we've been working our tails off doing this. And she told me, she says, we haven't snapped at each other one single time. There have been things that have gone wrong. We've had to go back to the store. But through this whole project, and even the days after she told me this, we haven't snapped. We haven't gotten into bickering or arguing. Sometimes when you work with your partner, especially things that are challenging or difficult, you might start to get on each other's nerves. And normally we don't anyway, but if we are going to, it's typically when we do something more difficult or challenging, right? But she said to me, yeah, we haven't had any of this happen. And it didn't click in my mind until I was coming up with some of my 10 themes here. And then I realized, oh, she gave me my last theme, which is working in harmony together, right? Venus and Saturn doing those hard things, but somehow having that grace or, beneficence kind of shine through anything that could be petty or in a form of disharmony. Okay, so those are my 10 themes to watch for, not only over the weekend here, but also this is seeding the new moon that is taking place over the next lunation cycle. That's all I have for today. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. I'll be back again tomorrow for another astrology video. And have a nice day. I'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.